what is thought?
So as I have looked online, the first kind of definition of what is thought is it's just conscious, I guess, thinking, which kind of, to me, the answer, what is thought, didn't really answer what is thought. It just kind of
reiterates itself.
Like you said, just iterates itself. But as I continue to look down and then further think about it, to me, what is thought? It is like a voice to our conscience and even subconscious. Kind of, what are your thoughts on that? And as you've looked into the idea of thought, what have you found?
Well, like usually when you ask what is something, of course the first thing is to come up with a definition. And so I think it was Webster's dictionary that says thought is an idea or an opinion formed by the process of thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I kind of came to a similar conclusion in my own research that it's kind of just a calculation. If you want to take the biological, sort of psychological approach, it's a calculation. So we're taking in all of this data throughout our environment, throughout past experiences, and coming up with a thought about it. Time to wake up.
I feel really. Let me check my alarms. Crap. Okay,
so take two.
Take two. Sorry.
So it's calculations, but then we're taking in all this data and past experiences, which is also data, and kind of running all of these different calculations, algorithms in our brains that our brain comes up with a conclusion about it. And so that's kind of the more physical world view of it, and more psychological, I guess. Biological being like electrical synapses and things like that. But of course there is, in my opinion, a metaphysical or spiritual, another realm type version of what a thought is too, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point.
Yeah. Yes, algorithms, as I have thought about it, I mean, if we really look at it kind of in the brain, it's just a firing of, like you said, just synapses going back and forth. And our brain, as I thought about it, is very much like a computer. I love how you talked about bringing in just like data, information, and processing it through. And our brains are running its own algorithm, just like you said. And through all this data, through all this information, this is a thought. What is your thought on, like sausage on sausage pizza? It's like, well, my brain's going back through all the times that I've had sausage pizza, and for me, the one that stands out the most is when I got food poisoning from eating sausage pizza. So if you ask me what's your thought on sausage pizza, I go,
yeah, not very good.
Yeah, no, right? Have I had sausage pizza since then? Yes. Have I gotten sick? No, but that one point,
So it also weighs the significance of that data as well.
Yeah, and so, but it all goes back to just a firing of just neurons in your brain, and it's just super, super fast, like a computer. And as new information is put into this algorithm, a new thought is brought forth. That's how opinions change, how thoughts change. And what I think is cool too is you can even change your thought process. As a kid, I had extreme self-doubt. My parents divorced when I was 7, and so that just wrecks kids. Anybody that's been through a divorce as a kid, and even adults even, it just wrecks you. And so I had a lot of self-doubt, and I remember I got tired of it. I hate living in fear. I hate not being confident in myself, but the way that I was thinking was very negatively. And so I looked in the mirror for like 2 weeks, and in the mirror I was like 12 or 13 at the time, and I said, my name is Ammon effing Williams, and I can do whatever the F I want when I put my mind to it. And I did that for 2 weeks. and it changed the way I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only does new information, can it change our thought, we can change how we think.
Yeah.
And just all by just synapses in our brains firing off.
Reprogramming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of, actually I have a statistic here. The National Science Foundation has determined that the average person has up close to 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Some a good bit less, but anywhere between 12 to 60 or 80,000 thoughts a day. And 80% of those are negative or repetitive. So they are literally unconscious thoughts. These are things that, like driving to work, trying to regulate the speed of the car based on the car in front of you. Like, you're not really thinking about that, but it's happening.
Yeah.
How hard your foot is pressing on the pedal. All of those things, they're more unconscious. But even beyond that is things like, usually people refer to them as negative thoughts, thinking of things like that they want to change. Like, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm not going to try to apply for that job because I'm probably not going to get it. Their thoughts about money or anything, I guess, sort of personality driven. You know, these are automatic conditioning thoughts that we've either, depending on our environment growing up, or our experiences, or you know, even a similar experience like you with the sausage pizza. Kids can have a pretty traumatic experience in class or something. You know, they might have gotten embarrassed, called out by the teacher or something, so now they never want to speak up again. Things like that. And so that's where cognitive behavior therapy pulls on or works to address those automatic thoughts. And so recognizing sort of what that thought is, and is it something you're choosing to think, or is it an automatic thought, and then deciding what you want to choose to think instead.
Yeah, no, very, just conscientious decision making of the thought process.
Yeah, so you did cognitive behavior therapy on yourself and didn't realize it at 12 or 15 years old.
Yeah, no, I just knew I hated the way that I was thinking, the way that I viewed myself. And my dad always told me, you can achieve anything that you set your mind to. And when he first told me that, I didn't believe it at all. I always viewed myself as bad, and things that I wanted, I didn't believe I could achieve. And that's a pretty shitty way of thinking. Absolutely hated it. And so no, you're right. I did what'd you say?
Cognitive behavior therapy.
Cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah.
No, I saw, kind of back to the whole computer algorithm program, A plus B got me Y, and I didn't like Y. I didn't like the end result.
Yeah.
So I replaced A with C, and then C plus B got me D, and that's what I wanted, and so just
changing the input.
And I think also life in itself, every day that we live life, it's going to change us. And I think if we're not changing, that is the problem. I think life is about progress. And everything that we do, it's not staying in the same place. And I think everything has to be, everything that we do changes our thought. And so ideally. Hopefully. I definitely like to look at life as through a very learning scope and or learning lens, because there's so much to learn, and so I like to think that I can learn from anything and everything, and if it happens, it's there to be learned from. So hopefully cognitive therapy happens every day.
Well, I want to go back to the algorithm thing. I don't remember who it was, but I watched a video about, I can't remember if it was a TED Talk video or what, but they were saying the difference between computers and human brain is a level of recognition and decision making. So the algorithms with computers will say, if this, then this.
Yep.
Or if it has these different characteristics, then it must be this type of object.
Yeah.
The example they used were chairs. And so the guy shows a picture of a traditional chair, like a wooden chair
Mhm.
with four legs on the screen, and like we all recognize that as a chair.
Sure, yeah.
So does the computer.
Mhm.
But then you have different types of chairs. You have like stools, and you
Mhm.
have chairs with only three legs.
Mhm.
You have like the ergonomic chair that's a ball that has little
Yeah.
back on it. And
Yeah.
but
And even chairs that just have one post. you know?
right,
Yeah.
and we recognize those as chairs, but the computer may not, because it doesn't have the certain characteristics that originally defined it as a chair.
Sure,
But
yeah.
so we have another level of recognition that even the computers don't have. So I don't know. I guess that's just more along the lines of either creativity or consciousness. I guess, or maybe creativity that goes into thinking, that makes a decision, but it's not based on the traditional algorithm. We still recognize it as the same result, but it's not based on the same input.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it does. What my dumbfounded face look was, it was me trying to put a word to, or a way to describe kind of what that is. Because no, you are absolutely right. Yes, a computer algorithm is if it's this, then it's this, and and when you look at computer code, it's really just a bunch of ones and zeros,
Yeah.
and so it's a lineup of how many ones, how many zeros, and okay, there's this, and it's amazing that from that you can get so much stuff like Google Earth, or through 3D like imaging or printing, or
virtual reality.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but yeah, it's. I don't know what to add to it. But kind of back to when you talked about spirituality, I have my own opinion on it also, but you brought it up first, so I want to hear your opinion.
Well, my personal opinion is I haven't made a full decision on this yet, but so I haven't had all that calculation to come to a final thought about it, but I do have thoughts, plural, about it, that there's a possibility that there is more of like a Freudian, like a collective unconscious. So I guess in a metaphysical realm, something that's could be beyond measure, although they do measure thoughts nowadays, or at least brain activity and that sort of thing. And then there also, Eckhart Tolle had mentioned in one of his discussions that thoughts are more like entities, like these little, he described them almost like little bubbles, although not actual bubbles, kind of floating around, and they will gravitate to whatever, almost magnetically, like if there's something in you that it resonates with, then it will attach to that. If you picture like cohesion of a water, a droplet of water connecting to another droplet of water. Yeah, and so then it grows. And so again, usually people are trying to figure this out when they're talking about negative thoughts and feelings. So if they're angry or jealous or feel inferior or something like that, then they want to figure out where that came from. And the Buddha he was asked the same question, and his response was, it's like being shot with an arrow, and before removing the arrow, you're trying to figure out, where did the arrow come from? Who shot the arrow? Why did they shoot me? Instead of addressing the issue of you have an arrow in you, trying to figure out the origin. But all of that to say that my personal opinion is that I do think that we are maybe more of antenna of a thought consciousness. It's almost like interwoven in the fabric of the universe, along with a lot of other things, and so we are kind of beacons for that, and so we can channel that, and whether that's positive or personal thoughts or opinions, or if it's, a lot of times we have thoughts that aren't even our own, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true.
And you?
Well, so kind of back to what you were saying at the beginning of kind of we attract thoughts can like cling to us. That definitely reminds me of just like karma in a way. If you put good energy out into the galaxy, the galaxy or the universe is then gonna give it back. And I totally agree with that. I try to put good out there all the time. And for me, at least, I firmly believe that as I put good out, I get good back. And I know people who view negative all the time.
Yeah.
And like negative happens to them all the time. And I look at my life and I think, well, bad things still happen to me. You know, I don't live this peachy king world. But the way that I view it definitely changes.
Yeah.
Like, and so, and I think just the thought process of viewing things in a good light makes it better. But I also, because I know my best friend's mom, she's one of those people that now thinks that like the government is out to like get her. They have infected her with these like parasites that grow out of her body, and like she'll get like she'll like scrape this stuff like off her skin, put it like in these discs, and be like look, it's this parasite, watch it move, and it's legit like nothing's there, and you're like, that's dead skin. She's like, no, watch, it's moving, it's moving. You see, like and you're there, and you're just like, well, yeah, because the wind just blew, so it moved it. No, look. And honestly, I feel like, because she's like texted me a couple times, and I've blocked her, but there's times that I've thought about just like going along with it, like, oh yeah, right. But no, and to me, it's like, what has infected that brain? And growing up with my best friend, his mom wasn't always like that. When I was a kid, when I would go over, she was fun. We had this big long rope tire swing, like 100 feet high, and she would like spin us and then push us. But then, as his parents also separated, she then started to view life negatively, and I think it was the snowball effect of now everybody is out to get me. I have these parasites growing out of me, and you know, where did that come from? And I think it was just the first initial view, thought of something's bad, which there are bad things. I'm not saying if you never believe there's bad things that they're not going to be there, because obviously there is bad things, but the way we view and think about it, I think makes a big difference. But back to spirituality again. I'm not fully set on this idea either. I hope that it grows. But as you know, I believe that before we got physical bodies on earth, we lived as spiritual entities, spiritual beings with God, who I call our Heavenly Father. And I view myself now as physical and as spiritual. And this is my physical body, and what gives my physical body life, of course, is blood, you know, all that stuff, but the spirit. And again, this isn't, I'm not fully set in this, but as I'm thinking, before, or as we lived as spiritual entities, I believe we also learn and grew then. And so perhaps our thought is our spiritual entity. And when I think the idea of mastering the mind is something that I'm always trying to do. Mind over matter. Like my body can do a lot more than it thinks, but if I push myself mentally to do one more push-up, to do one more rep, to do one more squat, to like flexibility, like just to stretch for 5 more seconds, go 1 more inch down, like, then my body can in fact do that. And I think, you know, like mastering the mind in a very shallow kind of essence, there's, you know, I can master it through mathematics, literature, philosophy, all that as well. But like, I think part of our thought, you know, again, kind of is our spirit. And it's, I guess back to your question of where do these thoughts come from? Where do they come from? Perhaps, I believe spirit is in everything, and so kind of attracting each other, kind of back to what we just talked about, as our spirit goes throughout this life in our physical body, other things, other spirits can attach to it.
Yeah.
And I think some of those thoughts can come from that. And a big reason of why I think our spirit has a lot to do with our thought is because watching videos of people who are just like crazy, like, and who just look like very bad, evil people that have done very bad things. It looks like there's no life in them at all.
Mm-hmm.
And when you ask them questions, they're just like, nah. Well, what do you think about death? So what?
Yeah.
Like just cut and dry. And it's like, where is the life? Where is the soul in that guy? My aunt, bless her heart, she's self-medicated a lot and her brain's just not there. She honestly reminds me, she's like in her 40s, 50s, but in a lot of ways is like a childish in her mental thinking. And, part of me also thinks like, what like damage did that cause, like her spirit?
Yeah.
Because now there's this big disconnect, and just kind of watching her, and then kind of watching all these like interviews of like serial killers, rapists, all that stuff, just not seeing any life or soul. It's like, like your emotions are cut off, your thought process is cut off, and you just don't look like you have any life in you. Since I think spirit gives life.
Yeah. I think there is definitely something to be said about the disconnect. I don't necessarily think that your spirit and your thoughts are the same.
I agree. I think they are two separate, but I think your spirit connects with your thought. Maybe I didn't explain it right.
Well, I think it can, because if you look at someone who's very physical world oriented, a lot of scientists, a lot of doctors or people in the medical field, atheists, or people who just are very even money driven. There's that's very material world.
Yes.
Thinking. And so they can be very highly cognitive people, highly thinking people, but there's no connection to the spirit world, or to their own spirit, or to God. And so it's, you can almost have the same sort of view of where is the soul of that person, like where is that that drives them, where is that life in that person. And so I mean, they may be very driven, like I said, materialistically. They may be very accomplished, or they could be in a mental ward and have that same disconnect. But I think there's a difference with self, like our physical self, and our spiritual self, which a lot of people think kind of inhabits this body, but I think it's more attached. I don't know, I guess is the word. But back to the idea of thoughts is, it's kind of, for me, it's like this body, this brain is having this thought. Is that the real me, the spiritual me? And I don't think that they're always connected. Obviously, we have negative thoughts and things like that, and I don't want to think that my spirit's causing me to think negative thoughts.
True. No. Yeah. I agree.
But maybe it's more of the lens through which we see the world. Our spirit is experiencing this physical world through this body, so it's kind of that perspective through that lens. And then that also goes back to what you were saying earlier about people who see that everything is negative, or people who see everything as positive. It's sort of back to the perspective. You look at, you're experiencing this through that lens through which you see the world. And so if you have a negative tinted lens, then everything you see is negative. It doesn't, even when good things happen, you don't see that. And so it's kind of, I don't know, just the way we experience the world. if that makes sense. So
It does.
yeah, so it's like
Yes.
our brains are the calculation part, and our cognitive decision making, but then the spirit is kind of observing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think, yes. Okay. I think our spirit does more than observe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that all of our thoughts come from our spirit, because I do think that this physical world has an impact on our thoughts, but our spirit can also. And so I truly think that it's this trying to unify our spiritual and our physical world, and whoever wins is back to the story of the Native American story. You know, how are you always nice? What's whatever wolf I feed? You know,
Yeah.
So kind of whoever wins is whichever one that we feed. You know.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that a mastering of the mind, back to me, is when our bodies and minds,
Mm-hmm.
The physical body and the spiritual entity, unify.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we can back, I guess, to that algorithm, take physical world input, spiritual enlightenment,
Yeah.
kind of world input, and then together, having knowledge in both,
Yeah.
can then come together to this conclusion.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't think it's either 100% physical or 100% spiritual. I think it's both, and I think depending upon what we're in is which one that we're going to fall back on. Okay, this is a very materialistic thing, so which one is going to win? I think the materialistic part of me is. However, I think spiritual and physical are all intertwined. There's always a spiritual aspect to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because I think that's kind of like part of life, is learning how to understand and control and balance both.
Yeah.
Kind of learn
definitely.
progress.
Balance is big, and I agree. I think that there is both, obviously, the physical component, and with modern science, for a long time we've ignored any kind of spiritual component, but with physics and everything, now it's getting back to kind of saying, well, maybe there is something more to this. But there was a point I want to make about the wolf story.
Yeah.
You know, which wolf are you feeding, the good wolf or the bad wolf? And a lot of people don't even realize that they're feeding the bad wolf.
Yeah.
Every time, and so that goes back to the automatic thinking and the unconscious programming and unconscious thinking. They don't even realize it. Over and over and over again, they're feeding that. And then, so it's kind of recognizing, being mindful of your thoughts. And so mindfulness has gotten huge lately, but being mindful of your thoughts is a first step. Like, what am I thinking? Where did that thought come from? And even if you don't go as far as where did that thought come from, but what am I thinking, and is that what I want to be thinking? And choosing something different. And then with, you had mentioned the, thinking physically, thinking, here in this world, and then also spiritual enlightenment. And that made me think of intuition. So it's, where did that thought come from? Well, it could just be intuition. And I think that's that intuition can be it can be a spiritual connection, and listening to your connection to the divine, and saying either, do this, don't do that, or this feels good, this feels like I'm going in the right direction, that sort of thing. And so I think that can be a way, a sort of thought is intuition, and that can come from the spiritual.
I agree. That gut feeling, mother's intuition, father's intuition. I think that evolution has something to do with that, but I think the spiritual side of us does too.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of people that just randomly wake up and they're like, I have to go check on my kid.
Right.
And then they walk in and they see their kid, somehow the sheets are are just like wrapped all on their face, or they're in this bunk bed and they're like hanging like by their neck, and they're like, how did I know to wake up?
Right.
And it,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but no amount of evolution, or at least that I understand.
Right.
To the knowledge that I have, no amount of evolution can get you to randomly wake up at 2 a.m.
Right.
And go directly to your child's room.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, evolution, it'll wake me up to go get food or to go pee, but but not to.
Right.
And I think that is the spiritual world, the universe, if that's how you want to look at it. If you ever reaching out and saying something's wrong, wake up, wake up, wake up, go, 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 go.
Yeah, and I think it could also be, it could be a message directly from the divine.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure,
oh yeah.
Or it could be a spiritual connection among people.
Yeah.
Because I personally feel that we are all connected in this big web of consciousness, spirituality, whatever. But that we're all connected, and so it could be that person crying out for you.
Yeah.
It could be just kind of this beacon, like sending out the signal that I need help.
Yeah.
And then you're there and in tune enough to receive it.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that as well. That it could be, because I think that we put energy out there, and I think I'm blessed with this gift to be able to look at somebody and be like, okay, something's up. And at the same time, people, I guess I also have this gift of anybody feels comfortable to tell me their whole life problems. So it kind of works out. But and so no, I think absolutely. I think absolutely that our spirits, can in fact cry for help, and that mother's intuition, father's intuition, friendships can pick that up.
Yeah.
Something that you said, kind of this world and society of all these spirits, a cognitive thought. That's cognitive thought. That's kind of what I want to talk about now, because in different groups of people, different groups of people think differently, but then also I call them social games. And it's just, I just think of a topic and I want to see how the world reacts, or how certain people react. I want to see how one person reacts versus how a group reacts, because I think a person is smart but people are stupid. However, that can also go both ways. I think that as a group, dumb people can become smart. But individually they're not that smart because of that cognitive thought. But where am I trying to get here? How do you think cognitive thought works? Like, what about getting a group of people together, even just the world together, creates this?
Well, I think with cognitive, you're referring to more like group thing.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, cognitive probably isn't the right word. Sorry,
but I do. I mean, we can see that in entire countries.
Oh yeah.
So socialism in Russia, and Maoism in China, things like that.
Capitalism here.
Yeah. So or even a sense of entitlement among certain groups, or a sense of victimhood in certain groups. And so I think that part of that is the data input. If that's all you're being fed, then that's probably what you're going to be spitting out. And so when you change your surroundings, then the data changes, the input changes, other people's thoughts change. So that's the physical world aspect, I think, of it. But from the metaphysical side of it, I think there's still the collective, this collective unconscious, this kind of group think where you're around people that, you're going to pick up on it, even if it's, I guess, I don't know if vibrational is the word I want to use, but you pick up on things that, even if it's negativity or positivity, but if it's an attitude, something like that, then you kind of pick up these different things, and and even if it's not fully conscious that you're observing it, that's still happening. Your brain is still seeing it. Your brain is still in the background running all of these calculations and coming up with a conclusion about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
body language. What's the thing? It's like 80 to 90% of your talking like comes from your body. Other 10 to 20 comes from like what you actually say.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's been times where I've walked in on groups and totally thought, oh, this is what the vibe, as they call it now, is, and then I'll say something, I'll realize, well, I was completely wrong, and I'm like, oh, sorry, okay, and there's other times that I've walked into a group and just immediately just been like, oh, I'm on it, I got it.
So even then, with our fancy calculating brains, we can still come up to
Mistake.
the wrong
conclusion. It's happened to me quite a few times.
All of these 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and we could still make a wrong conclusion.
That's true. Just the idea of thought is crazy, because you have individual, you have collective. I kept saying cognitive, but it was collective thought that I was trying to say. And then not only can it go from a group to people, but in a state, in a nation, in a part of the world. And then I think as a world, I think, as a world, the people in the world can think the same. I think right now a big world thought is just be nice. At least that's what I see. Just be nice. But I'm not in Russia or in China either, so I don't know. We don't get many media from them either, because they are restricted in a way. But
media is huge too, influencing the way we think. So
no, I know. I try my best to stay off social media as much as I can. Because I want a lot of my thoughts to be my own. And when I'm on social media, I'll begin to see, just the same repetitive message over and over. And at first, when I see it, I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that. But by spending X amount of time, I'm like, maybe I do feel that way. I'm like, no.
Right.
No. Because now it's like, wait a minute. As I track that thought, in the moment that social media, that person sold it extremely well for that moment. And I've bought into it for the past several long time I've been on it. Then as I follow that thought through, I realize that's a flawed thought. Like, if I actually follow this through, if I think it out, it just doesn't make sense.
For yourself. And there's also something to be said too about how often you see it and from whom. And how many people agree with that. And because it's like your brain's getting validation. And so it's like, well, maybe. And then, well, they also think that. And then they also think that. Well, maybe there's some validation to that. And so then you start to not quite think for yourself, but kind of go along with the narrative, I guess.
I think that's why people love echo chambers, because they just reinforcing themselves over and over again that they are right. And kind of funny. If I feel like too many people are telling me that I'm right, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I was like, okay, wait a minute, what's the catch here? Why is everybody agreeing with me all of a sudden? Like something's up. Why is nobody disagreeing? Because I'm always questioning what I think. Because is there a better way? Like it drives my younger brother nuts. We're both like problem solver type thinkers, and we'll look at a puzzle per se, and like he'll look at it, see it, and do it, and then I'll just sit there and look at mine, and my brain thought of a way to solve it just as fast as his did, but I'm looking at it longer. And then by the time that my brother's done, I hadn't even started, he's like, bro, what is taking you so long? I'm like, well, I'm thinking. What do you mean you're thinking? Just solve it. I know you know how to solve it. Well, yeah, but that's that one way. What if there's a different way? What if there's a better way?
And then next time I'll be faster.
And then what if that improves it? And he's like, bro, it's just a stupid puzzle. And it's like, okay, fine. And then I'll solve it the exact same way that he solved it, just as fast. But I just wanted to think a little bit differently. And so, the thought. You can challenge your own thought. You can think to challenge your own
Mhm.
thought, like a thought within a thought within a thought.
Yeah.
Thoughtception.
And that's really, I think, too, one thing that separates us from animals. I mean, animals can figure out puzzles, and they can
Yeah.
they can think and make decisions.
Oh, I have seen my dog think. I have told my dog, don't chase after that squirrel, and I've seen him look at me and go, and go chase the squirrel. Yeah.
But I don't think he's aware that he's thinking. And that's one thing that we have the ability to do that I don't think animals can. Like, they can't think about the fact that they're thinking.
Yeah.
And make a decision to
yeah.
think something different.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I mean, just based on my viewing, I agree. I haven't done any like studies or research on it, but no, I agree.
Yeah.
Based on the information that I have, that's totally my same thought.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, people think, like, if I focus on, if I'm doing this mindfulness thing, or if I meditate or try to clear my mind of thoughts, then am I just going to be like an animal or whatever? But the answer is no, because it's becoming mindful of your thoughts that separates us from animals to begin with.
Yeah.
And so they can think and solve problems and figure things out, but they can't decide to think, you know, I'm gonna feel better today. I'm gonna like look at something differently today.
I think at least I think what you're saying is they think from very point A to point B, point A to point B, and humans can think point A to point C, or you know, or just instead of thinking linearly, we can think like a back road or whatever, you know.
So.
Yeah. The brain and thought. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Gosh.
A lot to cover.
It is. And I think it's time to wrap up. Yeah.
I think we are good.
We're good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Thought Worthy. We'll come up with a topic to talk about next time.
Yeah. If you have any suggestions, leave the comments leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
And click that bell. I'm sorry, I had to do it. Thank you so much.